Can you say a few sentences about the community here in Venice, about your Jewish community?
Yes. The Jewish community of Venice is several hundred years old. I think it's somewhere around 600 or so years old. Jews came here from many different places. And this was also the world's first ever ghetto, invented by the Pope. And the concept really was to close the Jews inside, at least at night. Jews were limited in their movement, in their trades, and the things they were allowed to work in. And at night, they had to come back to the ghetto. This was not the nicest area in Venice. It was the foundry. It wasn't the nicest place at all. Ghetto, getti, means foundry. And so this is where the Jews were. There are 5 synagogues here in Venice. A German one, an Ashkenazi one, a Spanish one that was established when the Jews came here from Spain in 1492. We have a Canton synagogue, an Italian synagogue, and a Levantine synagogue. So 5 very old, very antique shuls, varying from anything from sort of 350 years up until 550 years. The Jews of Venice today are about 450 members, but as Jewish communities around Venice started to disappear, Venice took on responsibility for those members and also if there was any infrastructure in those places like a cemetery. So really the Jewish community of Venice is Venice and the suburbs of Venice, which go quite far onto the mainland. Yes, the concept was not invented in Germany, as many people may not know that.
Yeah.
And I just think that's very interesting to think that this is the world's first ghetto. The Italian Jewish communities are generally Orthodox in title and really have people of all levels and streams and ideas and colors. They're very much umbrella communities, unity communities, we like to call them, where we come together on Shabbat, on holidays, to pray and to eat together and to be together.
Being used just now.
Mm-hmm. So our mikvah is quite new. We did have an antique one that we were not able to continue to use. The current mikvah, I think, is about 25 years old, so it's reasonably new. And so the concept of mikvah for women, which it's mostly used for women, since the destruction of the temple. Since we don't have a temple anymore, men used to use the mikvah sometimes. But this concept of women's using the mikvah being a woman's place is really all about how to set the right rhythm in your marriage, right? How to set the right timing in your marriage, how to set the right priorities in your marriage. And the idea is that for the days that a woman menstruates and 7 days afterwards, she's not in any kind of physical relationship with her husband, just a verbal relationship with her husband. And then once she is immersed in the mikvah, she can reunite with her husband and until the next time that she menstruates. So it's a kind of a rhythm whereby you have time together to be physical, time together to be verbal, and then uniting in the middle. So the mikveh here is used by some of the local ladies, but it's also very much used by tourists who come to visit, honeymooners especially. Occasionally we might have weddings, but women that are observant in this mitzvah will always try to find a mikveh if they're traveling, or it's not something that they would consider missing. It's not something that you should miss. And so people that are particular about this mitzvah will always look for a mikveh wherever they go.
Is it compulsory to go to the mikveh?
Is it a mitzvah for people who are orthodoxly observant? Yes, absolutely. It's like eating kosher. It's like keeping Shabbat. Yes. It actually says it in the Mishnah that those are the most important mitzvot, is Shabbat, kosher, and this mitzvah is called family purity. That is the English translation. It's Taharat HaMishpacha, family purity, and that is the mitzvah, yes. It's considered to be a foundational mitzvah, something that you do, if that's your thing and you are an observant Jew, yeah.
Some people say it's a burden to the women, to go to the women and sort of, and not to the men.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that women are different to men. I don't think we're the same. I think we're quite equal. I just don't think we're the same. My husband does all the cooking in my house. So I assure you we're quite equal. But there's something about women and time, women and rhythm that I think is very interesting. And I'm not sure I felt that way, back way when I got married. I think this idea of managing your time and your space is very interesting. And also, I actually find it an extremely feminist mitzvah because you have full decision-making over your body and you can organize your time and your space how you see fit. And your husband kind of just has to pitch in to whatever it is that the tone that you set. So it's a very interesting rhythm for marriage and a very, very nice one. There are some women who don't connect to the mitzvah as much. But I think you really have to find it's very personal. Mitzvot are always personal. You have to find your way. And for me, that's really what it means. It means that I prioritize my mikvah night, right? Or I make it a date night with my husband, or I make sure that I'm not traveling on the good days where we can physically be together. But I think it's an amazing way to live life. I really do.
Will there be sort of punishment if you not go to the mikveh?
I can't imagine what punishment there'd be because it's a very private mitzvah. People if I had to go to mikveh today, I would not tell anyone. It would be totally private between me and my husband, which in a sense makes it even more exciting, right? So, no, absolutely not. I mean, I think there are people who would feel, certainly in a couple, if one person thought it was important and one didn't, I could see how that would be a bit of a struggle. But no, we're not big on punishments in Judaism. Punishments, or I would say repercussions for not taking responsibility, are more things that God has to address and not really we have to address. So no, really not.
Is there a more spiritual thing about the mikveh that means relation to God?
That's a good question. I think that the fact that the mikveh exists as a space that I think is uniquely feminine, I think there are secondary benefits to it. I can say for myself this year, before Rosh Hashanah, I decided to come to the mikveh. And there is someone in America who had written special prayers for women to go to the mikveh before Rosh Hashanah, which obviously Rosh Hashanah is a very important day. It's a very happy day, but we're all thinking about how to do better next year, how to remediate the things that didn't go so well this year, right? And as a feminine space, the mikveh is quite an amazing space to really connect to God. Yes, it's a moment where, it's a good place to pray. It's a good place to, I think for anyone religious or not at all religious who thinks about a higher purpose or about the universe and knows that when they want something, they have to put out an intention, right? Isn't that how it works? So women will come to the mikveh and say, God, I really want to have a baby this month. I really want to get pregnant this month, right? Or I really want my children to be well. And I really want my children to have a good education. And please, God, will you make my children safe? It creates, I don't think that's the purpose of the mitzvah, but I think the space creates possibilities for women to do things on their terms, right? And again, crazy family time, young families, very hectic, very chaotic. And so just the idea of having this time and space where women come and before they go to mikveh, they prepare themselves and they take a bath and they do their nails and they comb their hair. And just the idea that you'd have all this luxurious time when you have little children running around to just look after yourself and then, immerse in the water and with intention, right? I think it sounds amazing. I would like it if more women, felt that way, but I think that sometimes it's described in a different kind of context, and that's why it was important for me to explain it to you myself, because I think it can be, it's like anything in life. You can always take it to a bad place, right? But I happen to feel particularly, I'm a very modern woman, I'm a businesswoman, I am an educational entrepreneur. I founded an online school for Jewish children across Europe. Quite modern, like I said, my husband does all the cooking. And I find this an amazing, amazing just rhythm of life and way of being, and just to have the right time and space for the right things, for me to be able to be intentional about how I want my life to go. For Jewish life, it's fundamental for Jewish life, because Jewish life puts a lot of emphasis on families and family life, and Judaism puts a lot of emphasis on the next generation. How important is it's fundamental to Jewish life. I think it's maybe even what keeps families together when things get really rough. You know, I think when things get very hard, sometimes couples tend to drift apart, you know. They don't have time. Maybe it's financial struggles. Maybe it's, you know, other kinds of struggles, family relationships. And just this idea that you have to really put this priority on this rhythm or this way of doing things just means that, you know, first it's about you, then it's about your spouse, then it's about your children, right? And we try to keep the circles as clear as possible. So mikvah is fundamental for Jewish life. I should also mention, just as a sidebar, that sometimes when women want to conceive and they're not able to conceive, and they decide to take on this mitzvah and they decide to go to the mikvah, something that's very interesting is because of the way the days are constructed, that usually the night that a woman goes to mikvah is possibly the most fertile time in her cycle. So some women find that when they're doing this way of doing things, that then, you know, they've been trying to get pregnant for so long and then they just get pregnant. You know, again, I don't want to say that that's what the mitzvah is about, because these are very secondary, you know, very secondary benefits too. But I think that mikvah is absolutely fundamental to Jewish life. There are hundreds of stories of women who went to great lengths in order to go to mikvah. And going to mikvah means prioritizing your life, your marriage, your children, over everything else. And I think that is what makes life go ahead in the best possible way. So, yeah.
Well, thanks so much.
It was such a pleasure.